November 16th. We're snowed in, having a snow day at home, but thankfully the garage door is back on. We're in the swamp area today, the graveyard in the swamp. Here was one of the two main power distribution hubs for the swamp area and throughout the haunt. This particular one right here also did the front facade lighting, which was a bunch of black lighting and lasers, and carried over to this side and also took care of the rope lighting and the swirly globe thingy and all that behind the catacombs skits. Down here we can see one of my ultrasonic upgrades that I put on a lot of my props because I live in Canada and infrared does not work worth the shit here when it gets a little bit cold. Our rock wall tarp here was, you guessed it. So a few times now I've seen people with haunts, whether it be pro or home haunts, and they take a large tarp and they try to position it so it looks like something natural, looks like a rock wall, and then you go crazy on it with different colored paints to try to add the illusion of depth in there, and you get the fluorescence in there too. And I would say that it actually works pretty darn good. It's just a tarp. Just a tarp. But if you look closely enough, you can tell that there is a shelf hiding under there, but it still looks fairly natural. So these are actually all of my utility shelves hiding under here in the garage. I was tempted to rip them all out because that is what I typically will do on Halloween to give us a little bit more room. So the graveyard slash swamp area slash tar zombie and fog area was the last area when you were leaving Dunroth in 2021. And on the left hand side here, it's just all of our headstones, dollar store headstones that have been upgraded, I guess you could say, with a little bit of fluorescence over the years. There's always some black light on these guys. And of course, all the fake vegetation. The strip is quite effective, but it's not quite as powerful as one of your standard fluorescent black light bulbs, like the 4-foot kind. I think this is a little bit weaker than one of those, but the power draw is minimal compared. So checking around in the swamp area some more, lots of vegetation. We had a snake here. This guy didn't do anything, he was just part of the decor. But when the lightning lights were going off, where you couldn't see him that well in the dark and in the fog, this lightning light really brought him into plain view, and that's always a cool effect, man, running off my stereo amplifier. Setting up a haunted labyrinth in a single car garage can be quite a tricky feat to do, and when you do it, sometimes you have little areas jutting out that you don't want. As long as we're within our tolerances, we'll put rubber pads on these things. Bumpers. Don't want anybody hitting heads. Had one of those bumpers here on the front exit sign as well, because sticking out a little. Can't have people smash on their head on Halloween. It's gonna ruin the whole week. The stop sign was also donated. So we called this guy the Captured Man, for obvious reasons. Seems to be a zombie, but he's all chained up and he's captured. And although he's sound activated, it seemed to work better if you just wiggle his chains. The chains that are attached to his neck here. So we put the signs there so that people knew, okay, this guy's interactive. Let's mess around with him and wiggle his chains. And so on and so forth. Looks thick in there. Above the swamp and graveyard area, we did put quite a bit of detail in this year. Getting better at this whole detail thing, but we still gotta buy dollar store tablecloths and wall decors. This area back here on the upper level of what would be the graveyard and swamp, there's also a lot of electrical and stuff going to the upper level. So I just, because it was part of the catacombs and it leads into there and also creates that depth or the illusion of that we talk about and say 35 times in one video. This is my old stair railing, or part of the old stair railing, and I just put it there because why put a flat wall there when it would have been wasted space anyways. And then I just covered it up with black veil, so there's a whole pile of electrical, but you can't really see it now because it's covered up. Worked pretty good. All right, let's dive into some of our electrical. So we got a bunch of dirt here. I did that in 2 places this year just to add to the effect. But under that pile of dirt and tablecloth is actually a whole pile of different kinds of electrical and airline and all kinds of stuff. And when we pull this part of the tarp back here, we can see some of it. A couple different wireless controllers going in there. Electrical coming in here. And then, throughout the swamp, on the bottom, there was 4 lasers here, and they were running on either the green or disco mode. Down low again here so we can see how the lasers were set up in the swamp hallway, graveyard hallway. So there was 2 there. This one's an all green, and then there was an all green over there. And then there's 2 multicolored ones here, and again, I was running it either on the green, or when we go to disco mode, there'd be the red and the blue mixed in there as well. Now I'll pull this away too, so we can see what else is going on here. Because there's a little bit of action going on back here. Pulling her apart. Okay, so there is the solenoid for the airlines and the relay and the power hook up to that. And the airline came over to right here. And there it is right there next to one of the lasers. And that was just always on unless the solenoid was off. So the trigger's on there, you can see on the handle. But it would kick in and out whenever the solenoid told it to. That relay back there was receiving the message from this ultrasonic sensor I have down here. And it's hardware. So there's the sensor itself. Gotta pick crazy angles in these tight little hallways, man. I've been learning a little bit with these things. They work amazing in an open room where there's nothing in the way and you've got it mounted securely. But in tight spaces like this, you gotta find some crazy angles to make it so that they're not going off all the time. But when you get it in that Goldilocks zone, they work perfectly. So there was the sensor, and there's the board right there. So the way I was running it was that airline we were just looking at was set up for the 8-foot. The sensor has an 8-foot, a 6-foot, and a 4-foot zone where it triggers the different things. So at 8 feet, we were back here, right about where the airline was. And as you were coming up, you trigger that, you'd be like, oh! You'd kind of look down here. And then the 4-foot was set up for Mr. Snake Man right here. So you'd get an air blast down there. And then the 4-foot, you trigger this snake right here. You see the relay for the snake coming off what would be our 4-foot. And then you can see the other wire that's running to the relay over here.